Did you really think wearing ambition would be the same as living it? You dressed like a winner. Clean shoes, bold captions, big plans. But beneath the surface, still stalling, still scared, still scrolling. You played the part, but never played the game. And I watched, smiling, as you lost, beautifully disguised as progress. Here are some bitter truth about your attitude, and you have to listen it. The first truth is, costumes don't win battles. Wearing gym clothes doesn't mean you worked out. Carrying a planner doesn't mean you made a plan. Because you people wear the appearance of effort without effort itself. Clean sneakers, motivational playlist, that brand new planner you'll only use for 2 days. Even posted a story with the caption, "Let's grind." I watched and smiled because I know your secret. You dressed like a winner, but acted like a loser. Not out loud, not obviously, but in all the ways that matter. You see, the real work? You didn't touch it. That task you fear? You avoided it. That habit you swore to build? You pushed it to tomorrow. But you looked the part. You posed like a fighter, and that's all I need. You see, the costume is a trick, not for others. For you, you feel productive because you look prepared. You feel committed because you bought the journal. You feel disciplined because your desktop wallpaper says, "No excuses." But let me remind you, costumes don't win battles. Soldiers win battles. And you? You're unarmed, untrained, unwilling, but wearing armor like it'll fight for you. You think appearance is progress? That vibe is victory. I love that. Because while you're rehearsing in the mirror, someone else is bleeding in the arena. And when failure comes knocking, you'll be shocked. You'll say, "But I tried." You looked like you tried. You bought the pen but never wrote. You showed up but never started. You talked but never moved. And me? I was there, whispering every step of the way. You're doing great. At least you look serious. You'll go harder tomorrow, you're just warming up. But you never warm up. You stay pretending, wrapped in a costume, dying inside. And here's the best part. Once you fall in love with the image, I make sure you protect it more than your actual progress. Because you fear being exposed as fake. So you double down on the mask and abandon the mission. And tomorrow? Oh, tomorrow I'll offer you an even sharper disguise. One that feels realer than ever. One you'll mistake for growth again. But that's a story for the next trap I'll set. The second truth is, you practice motivation, not movement. And I think you'll wear it perfectly. You've read the quotes, heard the speeches, saved the reels that scream, "No excuses." You say you're inspired. But I ask you, inspired to do what exactly? Sit there and feel hyped? Nod in agreement like that makes you different? You're not chasing progress. You're chasing a feeling. Motivation has become your drug. And every day, I'm your dealer. Think about it. You're more committed to your morning playlist than your long-term plan. More loyal to your dopamine than your discipline. You think the spark is the signal to start. But what happens when the spark doesn't come? Do you still move? Or do you wait for your next hit of hype? You don't build momentum. You rehearse it. You script your day in your head, but never let it bleed into your reality. Why? Because you've trained your mind to feel satisfied by the intention alone. You've learned how to look busy without ever being dangerous. Curious, isn't it? How many times you felt ready, but never got ready? Here's the trap I built just for you. Every time you feel that fire, you pause to enjoy it. You admire your hunger, instead of feeding it with action, and slowly, if you rot with motivation. You think you're a soldier, but soldiers move under fire, not under feelings. You don't need another reel. You need to face the war you're avoiding, but you're scared of starting, because starting means you'll see the truth. You're not who you say you are, and that's where I tighten the chain, because the more you prepare, the less prepared you actually are. So keep scrolling. Keep studying success like it's contagious. And I'll meet you in the next room, where I show you the most beautiful lie I've ever written. The third truth is, you waited for clarity, but I sent you confusion. Tell me, what if the reason you never moved? Was it because you were never meant to feel ready? You didn't move because the path wasn't clear, right? You needed certainty. You needed alignment. You needed the universe to send you a sign. But who told you clarity comes before movement? Who told you peace is the price of progress? Let me confess something. I'm the one who told you to wait. I whispered it in your indecision. I blurred the lines. I fogged your mirror. Because, as long as you're confused, you won't commit. Ever wonder why your thoughts, I feel like static at night? Why do you rehearse your future and still feel lost? It's not an accident. It's architecture. I designed your doubt to look wise. I made hesitation feel smart. I turned your inner voice into a courtroom, and you never get a verdict. You mistake your overthinking for depth, but it's not deep. It's drowning. Clarity doesn't come before the leap. It comes after. But you never jump. You call it processing. I call it paralysis with polish. And the longer you wait for clarity, the stronger I become. Because clarity isn't hiding. It's waiting. On the other side of commitment. But you've built a home in hesitation. Here's the tragedy. You weren't confused because you lacked direction. You were confused because you refused to make a decision. And now? Now, you call this stagnation your season. You tell yourself it's okay to not know. To rest. To reflect. Reflect on what, exactly? The time you wasted preparing to live? Let me ask you something darker. When did you start needing permission to begin? That's the question you avoid. But the next room will show you the answer. Because if confusion didn't stop you, maybe comfort did. So go ahead. Wrap yourself in indecision. Hold your journal like a shield. Talk to the stars. Read the signs. Light the candles. And when you're done, I'll be waiting. With the next truth, you won't want to hear. The fourth truth is, you didn't struggle because you were lost. You struggled because you were comfortable. But here's the twist. What if comfort isn't safety? What if it's sedation? You told yourself the reason you're stuck is because you're lost. But let me ask you something. Were you really lost? Or were you just comfortable enough to stop looking? You weren't in pain. You were in just enough pain. Not enough to wake up. Just enough to complain. You called it a low season. But let's be honest. Was it a struggle? Or was it sedation disguised as survival? Your bed became your battlefield. Your scrolling became your strategy. And your potential? It sat quietly in the corner, suffocating in silence. You weren't paralyzed by fear. You were pacified by comfort. No urgency. No necessity. Just tomorrow. And someday. And when I'm ready. You didn't burn out. You faded. Because I don't always come for you with chaos. Sometimes I win by giving you everything except what you need. Warm food, a working phone, a world of distractions that feel like purpose. You weren't starving. You were snacking your destiny away. You don't chase your goals anymore. You nibble at them. Just a bit of progress. Just enough effort to soothe the guilt, but never enough, and to escape the cage. And here's the dark truth you've refused to look at. Comfort is the enemy you cuddle. The prison with pillows. The coffin you decorated. Because if pain made you move, then comfort made you stay. You weren't lost. You were lulled. And now, here you are. Numb, but functioning. Present, but powerless. Awake, but only halfway. But let me ask, how long can you live like this before comfort becomes ice your cause of death? How long can you keep trading growth for ease? Because what's coming next won't feel cozy. In fact, it's going to burn. What happens when comfort turns on you? When your own coping becomes the curse? You dress like a winner, but you acted like a loser. You wanted the recognition. You wanted the applause. Here comes the fifth and last truth. You wanted the results, but did you want the silence? The sweat? The shadows? Because winners, real ones, aren't sculpted under spotlights. They're forged in places no one claps. You thought visibility was progress. That posting had a purpose. That dressing like discipline meant you had it. But while you posed, someone else was bleeding in silence, grinding in the dark, training while you were tweeting. And now they're ahead. Not because they're better, but because they disappeared when you needed attention. You see, winners don't broadcast the build. They suffer in silence and rise without permission. You confused momentum with movement, image with identity, style with substance. Tell me, when was the last time? If you showed up without being seen? When did you last bleed? Without bragging? When did you last keep a promise that no one else knew about? Because this world, it rewards the loud, but it crowns the quiet. The winners, they're not the ones who look like they're winning. They're the ones too buried. It isn't the work to even notice what you think. They don't need followers. They need friction. They don't chase aesthetics. They chase suffering because they understand it builds them. You are busy decorating your discipline while someone else was dying for theirs. So here's the final truth. You will not be remembered for how good you looked preparing. You will be remembered for is what you did in private, when no one was clapping, when no one was watching, when quitting whispered sweetly in your ear, and you crushed it anyway. And that choice, in the dark, is what turns the pretender into a predator. So I ask you, one last time, will you disappear and return unrecognizable? Or will you keep dressing up in discipline, practicing motivation, and losing in silence? The world doesn't need more visible dreamers. It needs invisible killers. So, choose.